All right, welcome in to Talking Dogs. I got my sign back there that's backwards because I don't know how a mirror works apparently on the with a camera, but that's fine. At least I'm not sitting in front of a curtain in a room that's painted white. So we have a little bit of the scenery here tonight. I don't have a 3-year-old running around, so I can do whatever I want. Okay, we're going to talk a lot about Mississippi State again this week as it says on the side over there. If you guys have any questions, if you guys have any comments, please feel free to drop those in, and we'll talk Mississippi State sports as long as y'all want to. Big week, really big week for Mississippi State. In a couple of days, they're going to be at a frigid Davis Wade Stadium for the annual battle for the Golden Egg, and it should be a heck of a ball game. This is a game that always means something to the people inside the state of Mississippi, but not often do these two teams play with a number in front of their name, both of them. Both of these teams, both these programs have been top 25 routinely, but it's very rare that they both meet and they're ranked inside the top 25, but we're going to see that. Have not seen the college football playoff rankings just yet. We'll see where Mississippi State falls there, and also Ole Miss, who I think can be around the top 10 tonight when those rankings come out. So more than likely, Mississippi State will be playing a top 10 team on Thursday with a chance to get a big-time win. That would be the marquee win for Mike Leach here at Mississippi State. Martin comes in right away to land the JUCO offensive tackle that just decommitted from Oregon. Things are trending that way, Martin. Percy Lewis from Gulf Coast, that would be a big-time addition for Mississippi State if they're able to land Percy Lewis. He's an offensive tackle from down there on the coast playing junior college football. One of the big-time recruits coming out of Mississippi this year in junior college. And the Bulldogs desperately need an offensive tackle next year to replace Charles Cross. I think if he drops a little bit of weight, he's got the mobility, and his size is really incredible. For a guy that size to move the way that he does, pretty impressive. And I think Mississippi State has a really good shot at getting him. I think right now that's where I would lean for him. He was supposed to go to Ole Miss for a visit this past weekend, but ended up not taking that visit. And so all signs right now are pointing to Mississippi State, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah, like I said, big game this weekend for Mississippi State. I mean, you look at the numbers, and they're quite similar. Ole Miss on the season averaging 36 points a game, Mississippi State 32. But the way things have been trending for those two teams, Mississippi State has been trending past Ole Miss a little bit offensively. Ole Miss has been the better offense for the entirety of the season. And it's a much different offense for the most part. It's an offense that's very balanced. They can run the football as well as anybody in the SEC, and they're top tier in passing as well. So it's an offense that's really predicated on what they see defensively, which is very similar to Mississippi State, but they're going to utilize a lot of RPO. You're going to see Matt Corral kind of make those calls there. Either he's going to get the ball to Jerrion Ely or Snoop Connor. He might tuck it and run. He might pull it out, and he might throw it down the field. So it's a very difficult offense to defend if it's really rolling. And Mississippi State's the same way, although they do things differently in the air raid. State sometimes can kind of set up the pass to set the run up a little bit, to pull some guys off the line of scrimmage. When they're really going passing the football, they can run the ball a little bit, eat up some yardage. And I'm interested to see if they do that this weekend, if we see them run the football a little bit more this week against Ole Miss. When they've run the ball for over 100 yards, they've been really tough to beat. When they've run the ball 25-plus times, they've been tough to beat. So just a little semblance of the run could go a long way, although I don't think they have to do a lot of it to have success against Ole Miss. They've shown that in the past few weeks. Will Rogers is playing as good as just about any quarterback in the country right now for Mississippi State. And he's been pretty good all year, but now you can really start to see the comfortability with him in this offense. 76% completion percentage remains just incredible for me to see that in a passing efficiency of 153. 4,113 yards, which is the most of any quarterback in the Power 5 in the state of Mississippi, either State or Ole Miss. He passed Chad Kelly in that regard. He passed Dak Prescott for the most single-season yards at Mississippi State last week. Also passed him in touchdowns with 34. 34 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. He's averaging 374 yards a game. He is in the sweet spot in Mike Leach's offense, and he's got a lot of weapons around him. We haven't talked much about this, but, I mean, he's got a couple of running backs that have rushed for nearly or over 400 yards, which I guess Dylan Johnson not quite there. 397 for him, 352 for Jaquavius Marks. I mean, if you're getting that, if you got two running backs that are getting you nearly 800 yards combined, you almost have 1,000 yards between them. I mean, you'll live right there with that. That's at least showing a team that you're able to run the ball. And those two have been really good in year two. They're really valuable in the passing game too. Marks is second on the team with 73 catches, averaging 6 yards a catch, 435 yards, has 3 TDs. Dylan Johnson has 53 catches. Those two are 2 and 3 on your team in receptions. So they're getting involved in this game, and they've really kind of shown that you don't have to just be straight up handing the ball off to lure a defense in, and it acts almost like a run. So those guys have been really good. I've been really impressed with those guys down the stretch, and they're beat up right now too. Adam, Hail State, Robbie, any worries about the rain? Not really, because I don't think it's going to be heavy rain. I think from what I've been able to see on the future cast right now, it's not going to be around very long, and I don't know if it's going to be heavy. I think it's going to be a drizzling type rain on Thursday night. Now it's going to be really cold, and the ball can get wet out there, but I think that hurts both teams, really. I don't think either team is going to benefit from that. Ole Miss likes to have those explosive plays offensively. They want to go deep. They want to throw a pass down the field to Braylon Sanders or Dontaria Drummond. And with the rain, I don't know how many of those they're going to be able to get. But I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be that big of a deal at the end of the day. I think that both of these teams are going to be able to be effective offensively, and I don't think that rain is going to hang around for the duration. If it is, it's not supposed to be heavy, so I think that's going to be a big deal. The cold is going to be part of the issue, I think, just being out there cold and rain. I don't know how much these two teams have dealt with that this year. Winter really kind of in late fall, that kind of hits, that cold weather kind of hits in the last few games of the season. Most of the year you're dealing with the humidity, and then boom, right there at the end of the season, you got in the Egg Bowl 30 degrees. And I think that's what we're going to be dealing with on Thursday night is some really cold weather at Davis Wade. But I expect both offenses to be pretty solid in this ball game. You got two really good quarterbacks that are playing good ball. Ole Miss has started to get healthy here at the end. Mississippi State has shown that it's really grown in this offense down the stretch. So I think it's setting up to be a really special night, I think, for these two teams. Martin, do you expect a big crowd, or will the game being on Thanksgiving hurt attendance? I think it should be a good crowd. They had a pretty solid crowd a couple of years ago in 2019, and we've seen the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving before, and there's been some really good crowds. I'm interested to see in 2021 what that looks like, because crowds have really kind of struggled to kind of get back to where they were before the pandemic. It's been like that everywhere. Ohio State was playing a huge game against Michigan State last week, and I saw empty seats everywhere. I mean, it's really difficult to get people back in the stadium. How it was. Everybody can sit at home in front of the fireplace on Thursday night with their family and watch the game. So it's harder to convince people to come to games now and experience it live. Oh, Fred said State's out of the rankings, huh? Did those just come out? Not really that surprised. I was kind of expecting them to probably push Clemson. I don't know who's in there, but there's some 3-loss teams that they could push in there. They've been kind of toying with the idea of Mississippi State being in there as a 4-loss team. I personally think State deserves to be in there, because since the Memphis and LSU games, they've lost one ball game, and they've beaten 2 teams inside the top 25. They won on the road at Auburn with a big-time comeback. They should have beat Arkansas. They lost that ball game, and Arkansas is a top 25 team. If you don't lose that ball game to Arkansas, you've won every single game since the Alabama game, and you're one of the hottest teams in the country. And I still think Mississippi State is, but I don't think it really matters in the grand scheme right now because they're not in play for the Sugar Bowl, which is going to take the top SEC team. And at this point, you're going to be selected by some bowl that's around, they're all kind of where Mississippi State is right now. They're all kind of the same. They're not all that different. They're probably going to be somewhere in Florida, if I had to guess, maybe Texas. So we'll see what happens there. Ole Miss moved up to 9th. Yeah, I guess just the guy that they had, Michigan State, I guess, lost in front of them. But yeah, I mean, it's a good opportunity for Mississippi State. You got a top 10 team, and there's really no excuses for Ole Miss coming in this ball game. They're pretty healthy here. They're coming in as a top 10 team. They're not kind of dragging in here. So State's getting Ole Miss at their best. This is Ole Miss at their highest height right now at number 9 in the country. So, I mean, there's plenty of motivation for the Bulldogs going into this. They're not going to be ranked in any of the polls now, so that's not going to be a top 25 showdown like we thought. They weren't ranked in AP or the coaches poll either. So, that's going to be – there's a lot of motivation there for Mississippi State coming in. I wanted to talk about kind of the matchup to watch for me. I've thought for the last few weeks, I now think that State is kind of in the position where they should be able to move the ball and score points on just about anybody. I mean, they didn't do it against Alabama, but since then they've done it pretty much against everybody that they've played. And they've done it at will in the second half in these last few games. So coming into this ball game for Mississippi State, I feel confident in their offense to move the ball down the field and score points. And I think the main thing for them, they need to get inside the red zone. When they get in the red zone, they need to score touchdowns because Ole Miss is fully capable of doing that themselves, and this could be a high-scoring game. That remains to be seen. I think there's some factors that go into that. The big thing for me for Mississippi State is you're going to give up some big plays here and there. They need to win inside the red zone defensively. I think the defense has got to get off the field inside the red zone and not allow them to cross in for touchdowns. If you give up field goals, you'll take that. But I think we're going to see Ole Miss go for it a lot inside the red zone. There's a report out there that the freshman kicker, Caden Costa, is out for the ball game. That I haven't seen that officially confirmed or anything like that, but I think that's a pretty strong rumor and has come from some pretty good sources. If that's the case, then I don't think Lane Kiffin is going to trust in his kickers in this ball game. I think he's going to put it on the shoulders of Matt Corral, and I would too. I mean, he's a senior quarterback. He's been in this game now for 4 consecutive seasons. He's been at Mississippi State, drove them down the field, and gave them a chance to tie that ball game 2 years ago. I'm putting the ball game in his hands. And if you're Mississippi State's defense, if you're Zach Arnett, you have to win more of those battles than you lose. You got to win it on 4th down. 3rd and 4th down is huge. And for State, it's making sure that you're not in 3rd and 2. Don't get in 4th and 1. Be in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and 4th and 6. You need to keep them pretty far behind the sticks because this is an offense that has gone for it more times than anybody on 4th downs, and they've been as successful as just about anybody. And, in the games that they've lost, they've really struggled on those 4th down calls. So in this game, Mississippi State has got to get off the field on 4th down inside the red zone and on 3rd down as well. The State's got to get out of there. And, turnovers could be big too. If Mississippi State can turn Matt Corral over, that's going to change the ball game. The games that he's really struggled in, he's lost as a quarterback at Ole Miss. He has turned the ball over. Auburn this year went for it on 4th down, turned the ball over. They had those mistakes on 4th downs, and he was turning it over. Last year, LSU and Arkansas threw 5+ interceptions in those ball games and lost. You've got to make Matt Corral make mistakes. You can't allow him to be in his groove out there and feeling confident. You got to get in his face. You got to get your defensive backs in there and make some plays. Safety play is going to be big for Mississippi State in this game too. So I think it falls on the defense for Mississippi State. I think that's where I've been with the Auburn game, with Arkansas, Kentucky. I thought the defense was going to be key for Mississippi State. Getting stops, getting turnovers, that was going to give Mississippi State the win because the offense is what it is right now. I mean, the offense is playing at a very high level. They're scoring 31 points a game on the season, but in the last few games they're averaging over 40 probably. I don't know what, I hadn't looked at the stats, but since that Vanderbilt game they've had 2 50-point games. They scored 40 plus against Auburn. They scored 28 against Arkansas. So, I mean, they've been hitting on all cylinders with Will Rogers. I feel like they're going to do that again in that ball game against Ole Miss. So, we'll see on that. I really believe that that Mississippi State has an edge in this game. I think they're playing better. They're playing at home. I like Mississippi State's defense better than Ole Miss's. The offenses are getting closer to being very similar as far as production is concerned. And, another key, I believe, is the first half for Mississippi State. Ole Miss has not been good in the second half. I don't know what it is about the second half for Ole Miss, but they're just struggling in that half to really get things going. At least from a scoring perspective. I mean, you look at the second quarter, they've scored 160 points this year. And they scored 85 in the first, 160 in the second. The second quarter is when they do their work. That's when they really start getting in a groove. And then third quarter, 82, fourth quarter, 73. They're right there. The second half, Ole Miss is nearly being outscored in the second half. It's very close to the second half. The first half is where they have done their damage. And for Mississippi State, if you can survive that first quarter, if it's a 7-point game and then you get to halftime and you're down by a touchdown, you're down by 3 points, or you're even leading in the first half, you have to feel really good because Ole Miss just has not been a second half team. It would be bucking a trend if they were this week. Because they've really struggled. I mean, I go back to the Liberty game, they really struggled in the second half. Same thing for Vanderbilt. It wasn't until the fourth quarter that they really picked it up against Texas A&M, and their defense did that. And this is a much better defense for Ole Miss than it was last year when these two teams played. And Will Rogers broke the Egg Bowl record in that game for passing. That defense was just historically bad. This one is not great, but they're much better than they were a year ago. I mean, they're giving up just over less than a point more than Mississippi State is this season. So their scoring defense, they're not really giving up a ton of points like they were last year. I mean, you look at the Bama game, they gave up 42, and then Arkansas they gave up 51. But since then, 26 to Tennessee, 17 to LSU. They gave up 31 against Auburn, 14 against Liberty, 19 against A&M, 17 Vandy. Last week was not great by that defense. They were really kind of sloppy, but they're significantly better. That doesn't mean they're great, but they're better. And that's something to watch for Mississippi State. But it's not – I mean, State has played some pretty good defenses this year. Alabama – Auburn's defense was pretty good, and State just kind of wore them out. Kentucky's defense was pretty good, A&M. So, I mean, this is not a defense that Mississippi State has not seen this year. They should be able to move the ball, and if they don't, then it's on them, I think, because right now in this stage in the game under Mike Leach, they should be firing on all cylinders. Will Rogers just missed – last week he didn't play the fourth quarter, and he just missed 400 yards. That would have been his third straight 400-yard game. And I think he's one game off from setting the SEC record for 400-yard games in a season. Might be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure. So he's putting up some historical numbers. And I know about the offense. I know it's the air raid, and things are a lot different in the air raid. But man, it's incredible what he's done at Mississippi State just as a sophomore. He's got at least 2 more years to go. He can play 3 more if he wants to come back for 1 more year. So it's fun to watch. This weekend's going to be fun to watch. Well, I guess not this weekend, but Thursday, but um, just a really exciting football game coming up. So before we go, if you guys don't have any more questions, um, be on the lookout for um, recruiting news. We've got some news on our board right now. Couple of wide receivers are in the hole for Mississippi State with some opportunities to come on board here in the next couple of days. Caden Pope from Tennessee, Xavier Thomas from Louisiana. Both of those guys are on commit watch. Xavier Thomas was supposed to announce on Tuesday his commitment to Mississippi State. Well, we assume Mississippi State. He delayed that announcement. I don't foresee that being an issue just based on what has been reported on our board. So I don't think that's going to be a big problem for Mississippi State. I still feel like they lead for him, and he's going to announce on Thanksgiving Day, on the afternoon of Thanksgiving on Thursday. So could be a huge day for Mississippi State there, pulling in a good wide receiver that is right on the edge of being an LSU guy. And I've always said, if you are on the verge of getting that LSU offer, a Louisiana kid that LSU's kind of messing around with and keeping warm and all that, telling them that we might offer you later. If you get those kids, you can win a lot of football games. We've seen it all through the years. Dak Prescott, Cam Dantzler, Errol Thompson did it with Alabama and Auburn. Nathaniel Watson had Auburn kind of slow playing him a little bit. Those guys will win you a lot of football games. You might not be able to go get the 5-star talent all the time, 4-star talent from those other states, but if you're getting those guys that are right on the edge, you can win a lot of football games. And Xavier Thomas is one of those guys that can help you do that. Caden Pope, Tennessee has been kind of sniffing around with him over the last year. Really good wide receiver. He's up for Mr. Football in the state of Tennessee. That could be another big-time wide receiver get for Mississippi State. And you got Dortch that you flipped from Ole Miss. You got Caden Pope possibly. You got Xavier Thomas possibly. And you already got Jarnoris Hopson from Horn Lake. That's a really good wide receiver class, and that's back-to-back classes that you've brought in. If you land those guys, going with the guys that you have, this Jacoby Moore, Antonio Harmon, and Teddy Knox, and those guys, you're really building here and stacking these recruiting classes of wide receivers, and you're going to see some talent here at wide receiver that Mississippi State has not had over the years. This is going to be a really, really good wide receiver unit to go along with Will Rogers for the next 2 years. I mean, this offense has a chance to be as good as Mike Leach has ever had. I really believe that. So we got plenty of recruiting updates over on our site. Please go check us out. If you're not already a member, which I know a lot of you are, please go check us out. We got all that. We got stories leading up to game day. Even if you're not a member, you can go read that stuff. And we got some exciting features coming up. Of course, we got basketball that we're covering. Both the men and the women are heading off to their respective tournaments, as the men are going to the Bahamas and the women are going to Daytona to play. And the women will play actually a top 12 team in Michigan on Saturday. So that'll be exciting. The men are going to have some really good tests as well as they go on the road. So just so much going on with Mississippi State this week, and you don't want to miss any of it. We got you covered over there. The message board is just going nuts today. I mean, we're talking about bowl projections. We're talking about recruiting, the Egg Bowl, Lane Kiffin. Everybody's talking about where's he going to go. Dan Mullen. It's just topics galore, and you got to go over there and have some conversations with your fellow Mississippi State fans. And also, don't forget to check out, if you don't listen to our podcast, Brian Haydad and myself, Thunder and Lightning, we got Egg Bowl previews every day this week. He's talked to Ben Beckwith. Today he talked to Kevin Fant. He's talking to Bulldog legends from the Egg Bowls past on there all week, and we're having some good conversation in there as well. So go download that podcast if you don't already. Derek, what do you think the men's basketball record in the tourney will be? I think they can come out of it unscathed. I really do. I think they're good enough. If this team comes out of this non-conference slate here, and I know Tolu has a chance to come back here next month before SEC play comes, but if you get Tolu Smith back and you're undefeated, you got to feel really good about your team. I mean, I already feel really good about Mississippi State. They haven't played a super challenging schedule so far, but they haven't slipped up. We've seen some really good teams slip up, and they're going to play better teams in non-conference play. It's not a non-conference slate that's really going to scare a lot of people, but there's some really good teams on that slate. And you didn't have Rocket Watts for the first couple of games, and he's still trying to get back to normal. Tolu Smith is slowly getting back. You don't have to really rush him back. But this team isn't even close to where they are going to be, middle part of SEC play. And if you can really build some wins here and you don't have those bad losses before you really start to get into the schedule where you're playing Alabama and Arkansas and Auburn and LSU and guys and Kentucky and teams like that, man, you're really setting yourself up to – I mean, you're not even going to be on the bubble. I mean, I feel like right now Mississippi State shouldn't be on the bubble. If this team is doing what we expect them to do, we're talking about, 3 or 4 years ago when they went to the tournament, that team that was pretty solidly in the NCAA tournament, that's what you want them to be. So, and I feel like this is the year for them to take that next step. I really do. Adam, you need a hoodie? This is a really good hoodie. I don't know if they have these for sale anywhere, but I got it. I think it was at one of our conferences that we had. We probably do have it for sale. If you want to go check out the merch store, I don't even know where those are. I should know. I need to do better at working for this company, I guess. But yeah, really exciting week ahead. I mean, you talk about this week. Thursday, you got both basketball teams are playing, and then the Egg Bowl. And then Friday, you have the volleyball team is playing their final match. And I know not everybody's interested in that, but what a job Julie Doherty Dennis is doing at Mississippi State. I mean, she took over a program that had won one SEC game the year before. This program has never been to the NCAA tournament. They've never had more than, I think, 23 wins, maybe, something like that. Never had a winning record in SEC play. Their most SEC wins they've ever had, I think, is 8. And she kind of struggled those first couple of years to kind of rebuild the program a little bit. She won 5 games last year, which was she actually took a step last year because their entire schedule was SEC. So they played 20 SEC matches. She went 5-15, and they got they beat I think A&M for the first time ever. And so they took kind of a step last year, but this year they've just been incredible. I mean, they're sitting there right now at 15-2, maybe 15-2, and they've won 14 consecutive matches, or 13. I can't remember, but either way, you get the gist. They're in position to share an SEC championship. And I don't know if everybody can really grasp how amazing that is, because this team has never competed whatsoever in volleyball in the SEC. To do that is just a remarkable thing for Julie Doherty Dennis. And I think people should go out there and see that team this weekend. They're playing their final match. They're going to be in the NCAA tournament. It's going to be the first NCAA tournament ever for them. So I really feel like people should go check them out, because it's just amazing to watch. It's kind of like it's even beyond what women's basketball was able to do, because women's basketball had shown that ability to be, a top 25 team. They had been in NCAA tournaments, and Vic Schaefer kind of elevated them to something they had never been. But this is a program that has never been anywhere close to being really competitive in the SEC. And she's already the SEC Coach of the Year, and it might be the Coach of the Decade. What she's done for Mississippi State. Derek, I think she did have some transfers. I feel ashamed. I haven't covered this team very well, just because I just don't have a whole lot of time to do it. So I don't know the background of all these players. I do know several of these players were here last year. And I recognize some of these players that played inside the state of Mississippi too in high school, but I do think she has some transfers in there as well that are playing a major part. And you got to have, the transfer portal is huge for sports right now. You got teams all across college sports and every single sport that has been impacted in some form or fashion by the transfer portal. And football showing it, basketball. Mississippi State's basketball roster is what it is because of the transfer portal. You look at the players. There's very few of those players that are making a major impact that did not come in from somewhere else. So you almost have to kind of set aside those spots each year for somebody in the portal. That's why I'm kind of interested to see how this football recruiting class shapes up, because they had so much success in the transfer portal last year. You almost need to set aside some spots for guys in the portal, a tackle, maybe a defensive back, somebody like that can come in right away and help you. You don't want to get too dependent on it. But now that you have this new rule where you can sign more than 25 players in the class and you can get to that number, that overall roster number, there's plenty of opportunities to go get some great players. And I think, Mississippi State can do that this year, even if they don't sign, a huge class in out of high school and junior college, which, by the way, it's shaping up to be a really good close. And that's why, again, you need to be on our website to kind of see how it comes out. But I put in we have a really cool feature on our website called the Class Calculator, and you can kind of put in some players that you think your team might be able to sign. I put in several guys that I feel like Mississippi State is going to land in this class. And if they land those players, and that's not counting some of the guys that are still in play, if they land just the players that are favorites to land at Mississippi State, it would be a top 20 class. They have a chance to push top 18 and maybe even getting closer to top 15 if they hit everybody. That's how good this class could be closing for Mississippi State, which is pretty darn good considering about 2 months ago they didn't have any 4-stars in the class, and a lot of people were clamoring for those kind of players. They got a chance to really end well and probably as good a close as they've had since I've been following recruiting. You don't usually see Mississippi State close really well in recruiting. You just kind of have to hold on what you got. This class has a chance to close really strong and be a top 20 class. I think it's going to be a top 20 class the way it's going. Derek, you're exactly right. Cohen takes a lot of heat, but they've been about as good as they ever have. We haven't seen a number one football season, but, if you look at it, national championship in baseball, football is hovering around top 25 in year 2 under Mike Leach. Julie Daugherty, who he hired as the volleyball coach, she is having the greatest season of all time. He didn't hire Ben Howland, but I feel like men's basketball is moving in the right direction. So, if we're going to criticize John Cohen for the coaching hires that missed, I feel like we need to come back now and say, he's done a good job. He did a good job, I think, on Mike Leach. And we're going to ultimately judge Mike Leach after 5 years or more probably. But right now, it looks like that was a good hire, and that's moving in the right direction. Obviously, Chris Lemonis was a great hire. So I think Cohen does deserve some credit here for what he's been able to the department that he's able to build. And really, Mississippi State athletics has been really strong for the past decade. They've really it's really kind of become a real solid athletic department as a whole. And now you just need to take the next step and just continue to compete for championships beyond just that baseball stigma, I guess. Baseball has always been good for Mississippi State. Let's see if that could translate to other sports and they can win some championships across the board there. So, all right, guys, I've really enjoyed talking to you guys again tonight. You can, if you did not sit through all of this. If you want to go back, I'm going to post this now on YouTube. You can go back and watch the whole thing if you'd like. Again, we do this every week. We try to do this one night during the week. We'll do a live chat. So make sure you guys are subscribing to this page. Subscribe to it. Share it if you want to. Tell your friends about it. Sit around and laugh at me. Whatever you want to do it. It's a free country. But I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy your families. Hope to see you at the stadium on Thursday. And we'll see you after the game. We'll have a post-game recap, too, after the game. So we'll see you then, and then we'll see you next week for another live chat. Have a great Thanksgiving, and appreciate you guys.